when my own son-in-law filed a motion against me, claiming I'd influenced my daughter. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my proof. Watching him read that court order with trembling hands was a sight I'll never forget. But that hearing was only the beginning of something bigger. The key was still under the third planter, just like always. I bent down, the jasmine brushing my sleeve, and smiled a little at the small predictability of it. The porch swing creaked when I stepped up, as if whispering, "You're back, Loretta?" I carried a paper sack of pecans and my overnight bag, the same one I used to pack for weekends with my late husband. Charleston light fell soft and golden across the porch floor. Everything looked like home, until it didn't. Inside, the air smelled wrong, too sharp, too citrusy, like someone had scrubbed away my years. I bumped the sticky latch with my hip, just the way I always had, and noticed a new rug, one I didn't buy. I could almost hear Harold's voice, quiet and steady. "Lock the ledger, Loretta." I smiled faintly, though I didn't know why that memory came to me right then. Maybe it was the way the light bulbs were all fresh, or how the thermostat read 68 instead of 72. It was home, but not quite mine. Down the hallway, the family photos hung crooked. The empty nail where our wedding portrait used to hang glared at me like a missing tooth. In the kitchen, a line of sleek white mugs sat where my chipped blue ones should have been. On the counter, a note in my daughter Renata's handwriting read, "Guest linens," I whispered. Guest. And felt something small and cold settle in my chest. The grocery list fluttered in the air from the vent. Her pen, her ink, not mine. I saw a new Wi-Fi router labeled Vale Ridley Home. I stood there and thought, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. I called out, "Renata? Eamon?" Nothing answered but the dryer tumbling somewhere down the hall. I didn't rush. I've learned that when people get loud, you stay quiet. Quiet lets you hear what's really being said. I walked toward my room. My room. The door was open and I stopped so hard the floor creaked under me. The bed, gone. The quilt Harold's mother sewed, gone. The walls painted gray, cool and detached. A strange bed stood where mine used to be. Modern, crisp, anonymous. The cedar chest that held our keepsakes had vanished. Then Eamon came out of the master bath with a towel slung over his shoulder. "Oh, Loretta, you're early." He smiled like he was trying to smooth over a dent in a car door. "Looks like my watch runs on time," I said, calm as I could manage. "Where's my bed, son?" He chuckled. "It's our room now. We thought the guest room would be better for you. Softer mattress, better for your back at your age." The last two words sliced thin and neat. I watched him move across my floorboards, wearing shoes inside, my late husband's cufflinks dish missing from the dresser. Every detail. I took in quietly, color, scent, sound, because silence is its own kind of pen. I crossed to my old nightstand, the one Harold made. The drawer should have pulled with a rightward hitch, but it stuck, locked. My fingers found the underside where he used to tape a spare key. Only tape residue remained. I went to the kitchen for my screwdriver. Gone. 2. When I turned back, Renata was in the doorway, breezy as spring. "Mom, we freshened the space. You'll love the guest room. It's darling." I didn't look at her. "Darling rooms don't lock a mother out of her own drawer." My eyes stayed on the handle. She laughed nervously. "We're just modernizing. You always say, change is healthy." "Change," I said slowly, "doesn't mean erasing." My voice didn't rise. It never does when it matters most. "I'll get your portrait from the garage," she offered. "Do that before supper." I replied, the tone of someone setting the table for war without raising a weapon. Eamon added, "We're managing the home now." I noted that word, managing. Into the mental ledger it went. Neat as ink. I carried my bag to the guest room and sat on the bed without unpacking. From there, I could see faint drag marks on the hallway floor where my bed used to rest. I texted May Hollister, my oldest friend. "You home?" Then I opened my pocket notebook labeled House, records, date, time, who said what, outside. The late afternoon sun shifted, throwing long bars of light across the hallway. From the master bedroom, their laptop pinged. A new email. Transfer title packet, I whispered. Finish your coffee, Eamon. Then I smiled. Just a little, because I already knew the next move. The garage smelled like detergent and motor oil, that odd mix of clean and mechanical that always meant Harold had been tinkering. But now it meant something else. Someone else. The scrape marks led straight to a banker's box marked Mom's Stuff, written in my daughter's careful handwriting. My wedding portrait lay face down beside it, the glass unbroken, but the frame scuffed raw. My cedar chest sat wedged behind plastic totes full of who knows what. I touched the lid, half expecting it to hum with memory, but it just sat there, mute and locked. Now, Loretta, I whispered, remember who you are. I took out my phone and snapped pictures, each one time stamped, neat as notes in a hymn book. Footsteps creaked above me, so I flipped the portrait face up again. My face and Harold's smiled back under the weak bulb, the kind of love that had built this house brick by brick. I straightened the frame and went back inside like a woman coming home, not a guest sneaking through the shadows. The kitchen gleamed too bright, their new white mugs lined up like soldiers. My old stoneware, gone. A bottle of fancy olive oil sat where my jar of bacon grease used to live. The refrigerator held a grocery list written in Renata's looping hand. Guest linens, eucalyptus, gray paint, I said softly. Evenin', who's hungry? Out of habit, Southern politeness drilled deep into my bones. Eamon didn't even look up from his phone. We already grabbed salads, Mom. Just like that. I was an afterthought at my own table. I opened the utensil drawer looking for my screwdriver. It was reorganized into neat little trays. The tool wasn't there. I set my wedding portrait on the counter, frame facing outward, and waited. Renata walked in humming, then froze when she saw the picture. Oh, Mom, we were going to reframe that. The glass was cracked. I brushed my thumb along the edge. Doesn't look cracked to me. Eamon leaned against the counter. We're curating pieces for a cleaner look. This isn't decor, I said evenly. This is family. I picked up the portrait and started toward the hallway. Let's not do this tonight, Renata said, stepping into my path. I am doing it tonight. My voice was soft, not loud. I stepped past her, and she moved, because quiet resolve carries farther than shouting. Down the hall. The walls were painted the same color as a storm. Their new thermostat glowed blue, set too low. A router blinked with their names. Vale Ridley Home. Gray's restful, Renata said behind me. It's all over TikTok. TikTok doesn't pay this mortgage, I replied, setting the portrait against the bare nail spot where it belonged. The dust ring was still there, perfect and round. Put it back by supper. Eamon's smile tightened. Guest room's cozier for you, better for your back. I wrote the time in my notebook, 6:42 p.m. They didn't notice. They never do when I'm quiet. Later. I checked the locked nightstand again. Still jammed. The screwdriver still missing. Someone moved my tools, I said aloud. Put the key in my hand. Renata gave that sugar-sweet tone people use when they're lying. We're decluttering. It was all so heavy. Weight keeps things grounded, I answered. My husband taught me that with wrenches and trust. At dinner, I placed the portrait upright in the center of the table. You two made changes, I said. You did not ask? Eamon smiled thinly. We're managing the home. Managing? I repeated, tasting the word. Help me make sense of that, because sense comes before peace. Renata's voice wavered. We thought you'd love it. It's easier for you. Return my portrait by 8, I said. Bring my cedar chest out. Unlock my drawer. When the silence settled, I wrote the list again in my notebook. Firm and plain. Then I poured myself tea, steam curling like breath from a tired saint, and texted May Hollister, Need your eyes tomorrow morning? At 7:55, I stood by the wall where my picture used to hang. It's 8, I called. Renata brought it over slowly. We should get a new frame, she murmured. We'll get a new respect first. I said, Eamon muttered something under his breath, but I only touched the frame, straightened it, and added, "Drawer key, cedar chest, tomorrow, 8 o'clock. A laptop dinged in the master bedroom, subject line flashing transfer title packet. I turned toward them and smiled. "Finish your coffee and bring me that key." May pulled up at 7:59 sharp. That woman always 5 minutes early to everything? Her thermos clinked against the porch rail as she said, "Show me your ledger." I handed her my small notebook marked House, Records. She flipped through the pages, her glasses catching the morning light. "Lord, Loretta," she murmured, "they moved half your house." I nodded. "We don't argue," I said softly. "We document." She smiled faintly. "That line belongs on a church fan." We reviewed each entry together. Locked drawer, missing tools, router renamed, portrait removed. I photographed the hallway dust ring around the old nail with today's newspaper in the shot for proof. May held up a quarter beside it to show scale. "Paper trail," she said. "The gospel according to smart women?" We agreed on 3 steps. Take inventory, record their phrasing, and set a time boundary. She'd stay as witness, but hang back unless I gave her a nod. Inside, the air carried that too clean citrus smell again. I walked through each room, calling out details like a realtor of my own history. Cedar chest, albums missing, kitchen, screwdriver gone. May followed, snapping photos on her phone, labeling them by timestamp. I straightened the wedding portrait again, still slightly tilted. "I'm not mad." "May," I said, voice steady. "I'm precise." She nodded. Precision wins in court and in gossip. I chuckled low. The truth of that could fill a Sunday sermon. When we reached the master, the door stood cracked. Eamon's voice slipped through in pieces, calm and confident. "Yes, transfer title once the improvements are logged. Her signature will be straightforward." May and I froze. My hand began to write. Automatic and clean. "Transfer title once the improvements are logged." I underlined it twice. She tapped her phone's recorder quietly, her thumb moving steady as mine. Then he said, "We'll push for co-owners. Vale Ridley, before summer." I stepped in, smiling like I'd just come for sugar. "Morning, coffee's fresh." His hand shot to the screen. Too late. The call ended. "Just maintenance talk," he said quickly. "Repeat it," I answered, not angry, just clear. "So I can hear it proper." He stammered something about insurance. I didn't argue. I just wrote his new version word for word, then added the time. 9:12 a.m. May scribbled beside me. That silence between us spoke volumes. The doorbell rang next, sharp as a gavel. A woman stood outside with a leather folder. "Good morning, showing at 9:30, she asked brightly. My stomach went cold. "Owner's present," I said. "Owner did not confirm." Her screen blinked the address marked "Occupied Owner Confirmed." May lifted her phone and snapped a photo of the app. Eamon appeared behind me, flustered. "It's just a consultation," he said. Renata chimed in. "Future planning, Mom." I looked straight at the realtor. "No entry without my say-so." "That's not a mood, that's the law." The woman backed away, murmuring apologies. Her app listed Eamon Ridley as the requester. "Appreciate your honesty," I told her, then wrote, "Attempted showing 9:31 a.m. Requester Eamon at the threshold." I made my statement plain. "This is my residence, my deed. Any sale without me is fraud." Then I taped a printed note inside the glass. "No showings without Loretta Gaines' written consent." Renata tried the soft angle. "We're family, Mom." I turned to her. "Then act like it. Ask." She nodded, eyes darting away. "Nightstand key by noon." I said, "By noon." May leaned close and whispered, "That'll preach." On the porch again, we planned the next moves. "Harlan Duvall still your lawyer?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "We'll get copies of the deed and banknote today." We built a list: tax bills, insurance, utilities, mortgage letter. She offered to drive. I didn't argue. We set the time for a full garage video at 11:30. I replaced batteries in my flashlight while May texted Harlan's office for an appointment. They replied within minutes. 2:15 confirmed. I felt the air shift, the kind of stillness before a storm. My phone buzzed. An email flashed across the screen. Southern Heritage Bank. Title packet e-sign link. I didn't open it, just took a screenshot. I met May's eyes. They just told me the truth without saying a word. I picked up my purse and my house file. Let's pay Harlan a visit. May drove while I read from my notebook. Each line neat as ledger columns. Locked drawer, 9:12 a.m. Call, transfer title, unauthorized showing, I recited. The tires hummed against the Charleston asphalt, steady as breath. Facts first, I said. Feelings can ride in the trunk. May smiled sideways. Trunk's got room, she said. I forwarded the screenshots to Harlan's intake email. The router name. The bank's subject line flashing title packet e-sign link. I pinned that screenshot at the top of my notes. My voice stayed even as I outlined my asks. Certified deed copy, title chain, confirm no power of attorney, and what to do if they tried to sell again. In with Sunday choir, I whispered. Out with courthouse steps. Harlan's office sat in an old brick row house, smelling faintly of lemon polish and law books. He greeted us with calm courtesy, handing me a cup of water like it was communion. His desk looked like a war table. Legal pads, yellow tabs, neat stacks. Let's see what we're dealing with, he said. I passed him my notebook. He scanned the timestamps and smiled. Judges like clean lines. He printed my deed, circled Loretta Gaines, sole owner. No power of attorney on file. He spoke slow for my comfort. You own this outright. That's the start and the finish. I felt heat rise behind my ribs but kept my face calm. What now? I asked. He laid out the plan like gospel. Demand letter for access to my property. Cease and desist for showings, lock directive, and a record notice to the bank. May jotted action items on a small card and slid it into my purse. That's your playbook, she whispered. Harlan turned to his monitor. Let's look at that bank email. His brow tightened. This e-sign link, if clicked, it could mimic your approval. My heart stilled. So if I'd opened it, they'd have a fake consent log, he finished. Never touch it. He typed up a notice of non-consent to Southern Heritage Bank, stamping the letterhead bold. We'll hold them accountable. He printed a sign for my porch. All showings require Loretta Gaines' written consent. I signed a retainer. He sealed tamper-proof stickers into an envelope. For your nightstand and cedar chest, he said, if they pry again, you'll know. At the county clerk's office, the lights buzzed overhead, cool and sterile. The clerk, a young woman named Haley Boone, smiled when she saw Harlan. Pulling another title book, she teased. She printed my deed and the last 24 months of filings. The pages smelled like toner and relief. Clean record, no liens, no transfers, she said. Would you like us to set an alert? I nodded. Yes, ma'am. She keyed it in. Any filing attempt now sends an instant call to me and Harlan. I tucked the papers into a folder labeled Magnolia. Title. You just gave me a good night's sleep, I told her, and she grinned. Then her screen flickered. Well, look here, she said. A rejected submission from last night. Bad indexing. She printed the slip, requester listed as third-party preparer, digits matching Eamon's area code. Reason, insufficient owner, consent documentation. Harlan's pen tapped the table. That's gold. Loretta. Proof they tried. I nodded slowly. They knocked on the door and the door said no. He slid the slip into my folder. Exhibit A, he said. Before leaving, Harlan called the bank's compliance line on speaker. Filing our case. I wrote the reference number down myself. He told me to rekey locks by 4 and send the cease and desist by courier before dinner. May promised to watch the house. I texted him a photo of the porch sign. He replied, received. Good. I divided the documents. One set for the fireproof box, one for my purse, one for May's glove compartment, outside. Traffic hummed and the air smelled like warm asphalt. We sat on a bench while Harlan stepped away to scan copies. May squeezed my hand. This ain't drama, honey, it's maintenance. I laughed, short and low. Ask, I said, or answer to paper. Harlan returned briefly, repeating, "Say little, write much." I set reminders. Locks at 4:30, courier 5:15, review at 7. We straightened our backs and drove home. As we turned the corner onto Magnolia, a white delivery van idled at my curb. A man carried a new king mattress straight through my open front door. On the porch table lay a folded note in Renata's handwriting. We moved faster. "Please be kind." I stood there, calm as marble, and said, "Kindness is a door that opens from both sides." The locksmith arrived at 4:30 sharp, polite as a preacher, asking where I wanted the new bolts. "Every door," I said. He worked quiet and steady while May took photos for the record. The air smelled like metal and cut wood. When he handed me the receipt, I signed slow, making sure the timestamp showed clear. "Nothing personal," I told him. "Just housekeeping." He nodded, understanding more than he said. As his van pulled away, I taped Harlan's owner authority notice to the glass door. The words neat and black like a sermon headline. Renata's car was gone, but Eamon's truck idled half a block down, engine rumbling like a warning. May parked nearby, visible but not close. I texted Harlan, "Lock done, 4:47 p.m. His reply came quick. "Notice served 5:15. I breathed the sentence every older woman knows when reclaiming her home. One key, one peace of mind." Eamon walked up the path 10 minutes later, hands shoved in pockets like he was coming to help carry groceries. "You changed the locks on your own family," he said, voice pitching up to catch attention. "Yes," I said evenly, "on my own house." He laughed sharp. "Man can't even help his mother-in-law without paperwork now." "Help doesn't involve falsifying title transfers," I replied. The words slid out, calm and clean. A few neighbors peeked through blinds. One dog barked. Eamon's volume rose. "It's a misunderstanding." I held up the cease and desist Harlan drafted. "It's written plain. Read before you speak." Renata's car rolled in as he grabbed the letter. She froze, seeing us, her husband red-faced, me steady as stone. May filmed from the sidewalk. Silent witness. "Mom," Renata began softly, "we were fixing things, not stealing. People fixing don't call realtors," I said. She blinked fast. "You're paranoid. Truth has timestamps, baby." Eamon cut in, shaking his head. "You're old-fashioned. The world moves fast." "Fast doesn't mean right," I told him. "That's why brakes exist." Renata's hands trembled. Tears rimmed her eyes, but never fell. The space between us filled with everything she hadn't said since her father died. She stood in that gap, half apology, half defense. Then she snapped, "You've always controlled everything." The words came from somewhere deep, cracked open and raw. Eamon smirked behind her like he'd been waiting for this. She turned on me, voice shaking. "You think you can own every decision I make?" I kept my tone low. "Control is how this roof stayed up after your daddy passed." She flinched, hurt but not surprised. "You'll thank me one day if you ever buy your own roof," I added. Her anger hit its ceiling. She threw the cease and desist on the porch, pages fluttering. May bent to pick it up without a word. "Paper survives what shouting doesn't," I whispered. Eamon stomped off toward the backyard, muttering about lawyer tricks. My porch chair rattled as he brushed past it. I followed to the edge of the step, my shadow long across the lawn. "You're trespassing now, son," I called, voice calm. He kicked the side door once, metal groaning. May kept filming from across the hedge. Reverend Dean from next door leaned over his fence. "Best step off her porch before you see squad lights," he said. Eamon froze, pride curdling into fear. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "Regret requires guilt," I answered, and he left in a cloud of dust. Renata stayed, shoulders shaking, eyes cast down. Silence did the rest of the work. When the sun dipped low, May and I sat on the porch. The cicadas sang like old clocks winding down. "That was the reckoning," she said. I folded the paper, slid it into my ledger under executed. Then I called Harlan. "Confrontation handled, witness present, no violence." "Good," he said. "Paper trails move slow but steady." "I've got time," I told him. The porch light clicked on. My light, my control. I wrote the line for the record. Day 3, lock changed, mask dropped, daughter cracked. May drove off just before 7. I checked the mailbox and found a manila envelope marked Southern Heritage Bank, co-owner review unit. They're not done, I whispered. But neither am I. By sunrise, I was already dressed, sipping black coffee that tasted like resolve. Harlan's checklist sat on the counter. Verify the origin of the bank packet. Request confirmation in person. I read it twice. My reflection in the window looked calm enough to pass for Sunday service. I chose a pale blue dress and my church pearls, armor disguised as grace. If they expected frail, I'd give them composed. May offered to drive, but I shook my head. I need the wheel for this one. I slid my ledger into the glove compartment, locking it like a sacred text. This book's my spine now, I murmured. Charleston's morning traffic was thin. By the time I parked outside Southern Heritage Bank, the marble lobby was catching sunlight, quiet and polished, like control itself. Miss. Kincaid greeted me at the counter, polite but uneasy. She invited me into her office, hands clasped too tight. Mrs. Gaines, there was an update request filed last night under your account. Co-owner information? My pulse didn't jump, just steadied. Filed by who? I asked. The system shows your daughter's login. Before I could reply, Harlan stepped in, briefcase snapping open like punctuation. We're here to confirm ownership integrity. Miss Kincaid nodded, pulled up a screen. An e-sign tag was attached, flagged inconsistent. I slid my notebook across the desk. Timestamp, 9:48 p.m. And, I said, bank email, unclicked. Harlan's tone sharpened. That establishes unauthorized intent. Please initiate a fraud alert immediately. Miss Kincaid hesitated, eyes shifting toward the hallway. Renata and Eamon appeared in the doorway, summoned by compliance. Renata's face was pale. Eamon's grin was thin. I leaned back. Y'all showed up fast, I said evenly. Guilt travels quicker than guilt admits. Renata's voice cracked. Well, it was a draft. Mom, Eamon said we were just exploring refinance options. Exploring's fine till you dig on someone else's land, I answered. Eamon leaned forward, trying to reclaim dominance. You're reading it wrong. Harlan raised a hand. State law disagrees. Elder exploitation is still a felony in South Carolina. Miss Kincaid printed a fraud verification slip, sliding it toward me. This will freeze all action on the account. I signed slow, eyes locked on my daughter. I protect this house the same way I once protected you. Renata's jaw trembled. She looked down at her hands, the shame settling heavy. Eamon muttered, You can't prove intent. I tapped my notebook. Paper proves more than temper ever did. Harlan pressed play on his phone, the room filled with Eamon's recorded voice from days earlier. Transfer title once the improvements are logged. The sound sliced the air like cold wind. Miss. Kincaid's expression hardened. This recording matches the flagged submission. I'll forward it to legal compliance right now. Eamon lunged forward. You had no right to record. Harlan's tone went firm. Touch that phone and you'll leave in handcuffs. I stood then, slow and deliberate, posture taller than my years. I didn't raise my voice because my recorder never forgets. Renata covered her face, whispering, Eamon, stop. I turned to her gently. When you side with a thief, baby, you end up in the evidence folder. The bank manager arrived, apologizing profusely. Mrs. Gaines, your deed and title file are now secured under owner-only verification. Good, Harlan said. We'll need printed confirmation. Miss Kincaid stamped and signed it, sliding the document across with both hands. I took it, folding it neatly into my purse. Mistakes happen, I told her. Intent doesn't outside. The sunlight felt honest again. I exhaled slow. Harlan asked if I wanted to press charges. Not yet, I said. Let the paper bruise first. By the time I pulled into my driveway, May's voice rang from the porch speaker. You win quietly, huh? Quiet wins stay longest, I said, stepping inside. That evening, my phone buzzed. My neighbor's teen had posted the front yard confrontation online. Caption: Elderly woman schools her greedy son-in-law. Comments poured in. Queen energy. Proof of grace under pressure. I smiled faintly. The truth walked faster than they ran. Then I saw Eamon's comment at the bottom. This isn't over. 2 days after the bank meeting. Harlan and I sat in the Charleston County Clerk's office, the hum of printers and the rhythm of stampers filling the air. Fluorescent lights glared against white marble floors. The clerk looked up and said, "All recorded. Owner of record, Loretta Gaines." Her words landed like a gavel. She slid 2 stamped documents toward me, one for the relinquishment of claim, one for the lien on that forged $27,500 loan. Harlan checked the timestamps, nodding. "Paper don't shout," I murmured. "It outlives shouting." I tucked the certified copies into my purse, fingers trembling not from anger but from the hollow space that follows victory. The same daughter I once sang to sleep now appeared in legal print, detached and formal. Relief carried its own ache. We drove straight to Renata's duplex. The air smelled of cheap paint and takeout. Harlan handed her the notice. Eamon hovered in the doorway, pretending indifference. "You think paper scares me?" he said. Harlan didn't blink. "Paper scares banks. Banks scare careers." Bills cluttered the counter. Realtor flyers half open. Their empire of image was crumbling in plain sight. Renata's hands shook as she read the document. "Can this be undone?" she whispered. "You can fix a fence," I said softly. "But trust takes longer." Eamon turned on her, his face red. "You told me the bank would go along." She didn't answer, just stared at a photo of her and me on an old Mother's Day. Both smiling, younger, innocent. Harlan outlined the next steps. Repayment, compliance verification, and a standing order for protection if they crossed another line. "No more porch scenes," I said quietly. "You go through Harlan now." Later that afternoon, we sat in Harlan's office as he called Eamon's employer. The HR rep confirmed receipt of the garnishment order. "Deductions begin next Friday," she said flatly. 20% of net wages. She mentioned disciplinary warnings already on file. I felt no triumph, only a weary calm. "This isn't revenge," Harlan said gently. "It's rebalancing ledgers." "Revenge screams," I replied. "Balance speaks." He smiled faintly. Emailing Miss, Kincaid the instrument numbers to close the loop. I logged it all in my ledger. Dates, times, signatures. Each line a quiet declaration of endurance. That night, rain whispered on the porch when Renata appeared. No makeup, hoodie pulled tight. She stood at the steps like a child who'd lost her map. "I believed him," she said. "He told me it was just a temporary shuffle. Money for improvements. I didn't want to look broke." I poured her tea, not sympathy. "I won't let you drown," I told her. "But I'm not jumping in after a woman who keeps poking holes in the boat." She nodded, eyes wet. "I need help finding a counselor, a place to stay." I handed her a list of legal and women's services. "You can have support," I said. "Not a bailout." She folded the list carefully, like it might save her life. "No keys," I added. "No sleepovers. You show change with receipts." She whispered, "I will." Sunday came bright and kind. At New Hope AME, Pastor Eliza spoke about boundaries and the dignity of age. No names mentioned, yet every heart in that sanctuary knew. After the sermon, young Arlo, the neighbor who'd filmed the porch fight, approached me. "I'm sorry for posting that, ma'am." I smiled. Sometimes light lands where it's needed. Church members offered quiet gestures. Rides to the courthouse. Fresh locks, warm meals. Renata sat in the back pew, head low. Pastor Eliza slipped her a small envelope. Therapy vouchers and job leads. My prayer that morning wasn't for victory, but clean endings. The next day, Harlan called. "Eamon's been suspended," he said. "Outburst at work. I drove by the marina just to see." He was pacing near a stack of lumber, shouting at no one in particular. Pride is a leaky roof. You don't notice till the storm. I called Harlan again. "If he shows up here, we tighten everything." "Already filed notice," he assured me. My home glowed safe and steady. Porch light timed like a heartbeat. That evening, a text from Renata. Moving to a friend's spare room. Started counseling. "Keeping the quilt in your guest closet, okay?" I typed back, "That quilt's hope stitched in fabric." It'll wait. Just before dark, a man in a windbreaker climbed my porch steps. "Mrs. Gaines?" he asked, handing me a thick envelope. "Service of summons." I opened it under the light. Eamon had filed an emergency motion claiming undue influence over Renata, seeking to halt the garnishment and lien. My pulse didn't race. I simply placed the papers beside my ledger and called Harlan. "Thin ice," he said. "But we'll answer fast." I looked toward the framed photo of Eleanor and whispered, "I don't raise my voice. I raise my proof." The porch light came on, steady as resolve. The courthouse smelled of coffee and old varnish. I arrived early with Harlan, our binders thick with copies, deed notice, wage order, affidavits, audio transcripts. He whispered, "Answer narrow. Let the paper talk." I nodded, palms flat on my ledger, breath even. Renata walked in quietly. No makeup, no husband beside her. She gave me a small nod. Apology wrapped in silence. Eamon came late. Grinning like he owned the air, his lawyer whispered fast, waving color printouts like smoke with no fire. Judge Hollis entered, robes swaying with authority. "Emergency motions require facts, not feelings," he said. Tone as clean as glass. My heart slowed to meet his rhythm. The law wasn't on my side. It was my side. When Eamon's counsel claimed I'd coerced Renata, the judge's brow lifted. "Do you have proof?" he asked. The lawyer shuffled, offered screenshots without dates. Harlan rose, his voice calm. "Your Honor, here's the recorded relinquishment, clerk's timestamp, lien memo, and bank affidavit verifying the forgery." Miss Kincaid's notarized statement sat on top, tidy as a hymn book. Judge Hollis turned to Renata. "Did you sign under pressure?" Her voice didn't shake. "No, Your Honor, I understood and I agreed." Eamon muttered something. The judge's gavel tapped once. "You speak out again, sir. I'll hold you in contempt." The so-called emergency motion fell apart like paper in the rain. "Denied with prejudice," the judge declared. "Any further harassment will trigger contempt proceedings." Then came the recording. Harlan presented the doorbell audio. Chain of custody certified. The defense objected. The judge waved it through. Arlo, the neighbor kid, had captured Eamon's voice clear as a bell. "It's our room now. She won't fight. We'll get her to sign the rest later." Gasps rippled. Another clip followed, Eamon coaching Renata. "Say it was a misunderstanding if the bank calls." The room turned heavy, truth weighing down every breath. The judge leaned back, eyes fixed on Eamon. "Mr. Ridley, that's your voice?" He stammered. It sounds edited." Harlan smiled faintly. "Metadata's intact, Your Honor." I stayed silent, steady as oak. Dignity doesn't demand the last word. It stands where words fail. The rulings came swift. A permanent protective order. No entry. No porch confrontations. No third-party contact. A consent judgment acknowledging the forged attempt. Wage garnishment confirmed. Any missed payment meant immediate lien foreclosure on his boat. The judge required a public apology on record. Eamon stumbled through his statement, eyes glued to the paper, admitting fault, affirming my ownership, renouncing claims. The gavel's final strike sounded like closure itself. Judge Hollis turned to Renata. "Counseling stays your path forward. Today's orders protect your mother and her property. Honor them." Outside, the day felt bright but quiet. Harlan asked if I wanted to speak to reporters. "We're not campaigning," I said. He smiled. We arranged a locksmith, printed orders in a clear sleeve by the front door, updated the camera zones. I texted Pastor Eliza. "It's done. Peaceful." Her reply came quick. "Prayer circle at 6. I wrote the details in my ledger. Paper had been my anchor. Now it was my peacekeeper." Renata caught me in the hallway before leaving. "Thank you for not embarrassing me." She showed me a counseling receipt. "May I come by for the photos? Harlan can be there." I nodded. "Scheduled. Supervised. No Eamon." She smiled faintly. I handed her a small envelope. "Pastor Eliza runs a job program. You'll send me your pay stubs. Not because I'm counting, because you are." We didn't hug. We didn't need to. At New Hope AME that evening, Pastor Eliza gathered the elders. Locks keep honest folks honest, someone said. You teach people how to treat you. Another chimed. We pinned a copy of the court order on the bulletin board beside the elder rights pamphlets. I told them this wasn't revenge. It was maintenance. Paperwork, planning, prevention, the kind of wisdom you pass on like recipes. When I returned home, the locksmith finished his work. The house hummed in quiet rhythm. I folded the court order behind my ledger's cover. Victories shouldn't hang on walls. They belong in files. I brewed tea and watched the sun dip behind the oaks. The doorbell rang softly. Renata stood there, holding a small box of family photos and a signed letter. I plan to testify about the forged draw on Eamon's other deal, she said. I'm ready to make it right. I opened the door wider and pointed to the kitchen table. Then sit down, I said. There's room for truth and no room left for lies. Loretta's porch light flickered once, then stayed bright as Renata unfolded another document. One she hadn't shown the court. Her voice trembled. Mama, there's something you don't know about the second house. The tea in Loretta's cup went still. Was peace already cracking again? Or just changing shape? To be continued?